Hello and welcome to Rock N Roll. You're on the final episode of season 1 of Rock N Roll, and what a season it has been, and what a final weekend of rugby we had as well. Two really close games in the knockout championships and one traditional fixture that also went down to the wire. One score in all of these games. Let's look back at those scores as well. Thank you for joining us on the final show. Rock and roll. So in the final weekend, we had three really close games. The first one was the Premier Trophy. Then we had the President's Trophy on the final day. And in between, we had the Royal Thomaian for the 66th annual Michael Gunaratha Trophy between Royal and St. Thomas's. We'll look back at all of those results with Siat. The road is yours.
Siat Car Radials. The road is yours.
As usual on Rock and Roll, we're going to be looking back at last week's action, and to help me do that, of course, we have our regular guest in the studio. Abdullah Yusuf joins us. Abdullah, it's an amazing weekend of rugby to finish off the season with all three games that we saw, just outstanding games, one score in it. Some of them come from behind wins, some where people have maybe got a lead and managed to hold it out. Superb stuff for the final weekend.
Yes, and we've been really blessed as rugby followers, isn't it, Shanaka? For the third consecutive week, we had some brilliant rugby, and what a way to finish it. And as you very correctly said, it was all very close, keenly contested games. And if you're a neutral fan, that's exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start with, of course, one of those. In the first game, of course, neither of us were neutral, but we cancelled each other out. But a little bit nervous, Abdullah, coming into the commentary box, because it was a season that Royal might have gone trophyless, but at the end of that 70 minutes of the Michael Gunaratha Trophy, they did manage to annex the trophy itself. And what a win it was, 26 points to 20. It looked hairy for a minute when St. Thomas's went into an early lead, or at a lead at half-time, and then 20 points to 19, everything to play for, and then Royal showing that they just had the little bit more in the tank to come through.
Yes, and they kept it till late, isn't it? So far, the trend with Royal has been that they got off to good starts, which they did in this game as well, and they tend to taper off, but they showed just enough desperation, and they showed that willingness to somehow win the game and to have some form of silverware. And it was really close, Shanak. It could have a game that could have gone either way. It's just that Royal managed to take the opportunity in the last few moments when it came. And as such, managed to retain the Michael Gunaratha Trophy for another year.
Yeah, for St. Thomas's, it was a story of what might have been. They came close to several of their trophy games, but Royal did manage to score 4 tries, and that's, I think, where the difference was, because it's the three-quarter line defense for St. Thomas's was probably not as good as it should have been, but Royal again conceding a couple of penalties, and that's what has been the story of their season. Just discipline lacking where they should really have managed to close things out.
Yes, once again, as you very correctly said, Shanaka, Royal did concede a lot of penalties. And that's probably what kept the game close and gave the Thomaians the opportunity to go ahead on numerous times. So all in all, I think Royal will be pretty pleased that they won this trophy, but may not be so much as to how the season eventually went on.
Yes, absolutely. Brad Miller's season, of course, is somewhat of a failure in the Royal books, but I thought they have been a good side this season. They've taken games right down to the wire and provided a lot of entertainment. For St. Thomas's, a story of what might have been. They are going to be looking forward to next season. They'll be losing their inspirational skipper, Ihan Bulatsingalage, but let's see what the rest of the team can do to make up for that void that he leaves. All in all, a season that will leave both sets of supporters and both sets of administrators wondering what they are to do in the close season to maybe go that extra step. But a team that did go that extra step was the team that ended up the Premier Trophy champions. And what a game that turned out to be between Mahanama and Anand. Following the scores, anyone would have thought that Anand were going to run away with this early on in the game, but the Mahanama boys had other ideas, capitalizing on a few mistakes, coming through, and a really close win, 24 points to 21, and setting it up nicely for their graduation to the A division.
Absolutely, and it was a wonderful game as well, Shanaka. Both the teams were willing to throw the ball about, take a bit of chances, and of course Anand got off to a flying start. But again, they just couldn't maintain that momentum, probably took their foot off the gas a little bit, and then Mahanama, to their credit, just capitalized. And it was a wonderful game. And I just looking at both these teams, not quite sure how many of these players will remain till next year, but there's definitely enough talent for them to be competitive talent-wise. Probably they'll just need to look at their physicality a bit more, and of course A division intensity, which you can only experience by playing. But overall, it was a wonderful game. Both these teams coming into this encounter as unbeaten, and eventually Mahanama just managing to pull off the win.
Yes, they were 12 points down, and anybody would have said that it's okay if they had given up at that point, but except for their own team, and they managed to come back, capitalize on a few Anand College mistakes, and do really well to win that trophy. But Abdullah, you mentioned that they were willing to throw the ball around. Is it just that lack of pressure in one step down from the A division that allows teams to be a little bit freer?
It could also be the fact that that's the only way they know how to play, isn't it? They're not accustomed to playing the percentage rugby that you'd expect at that higher level. Yeah. So they're used to playing with a bit more flair, throwing the ball around. But probably once they take the next step, they'll have to realize that they'll have to be a bit more careful, a bit more calculated in their approach, and earn the right to go wide. So it'll probably be something that will come with experience. But overall, I think both teams will be very happy with the way their season went off.
Well, it's something that we've noticed even in international rugby, that sometimes the entertainment factor, as soon as the stakes get higher, becomes a little less. It's proportional, inversely proportional to the pressure, the level of entertainment. So hopefully our coaches will be able to find the right balance and not have too much structure, prepare the players to play entertaining rugby, while at the same time it's something that the kids enjoy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But also another aspect is looking at that game was the defense. I think that's an area, again, they will need to tighten up a bit because against the top teams, you just cannot allow them to get over that first line of defense so easily. It happened on a couple of occasions. The cover defense was good enough to come and make those cover tackles. But as you go higher up in the tiers, you just got to ensure that that first line of defense is strong. But it's something I'm sure that they will discuss and they'll adapt to as they go into next season.
Yes, so good luck to both of those teams going into the A division next year and providing a lot more entertainment, hopefully. And then, of course, we came to the big one. It was Isipatana taking on St. Peter's once again at Suganadasa Stadium. Last time this happened, it was the league decider at Havelock Park, a wet, muddy Havelock Park that saw everyone with their umbrellas up. But this time, fortunately, the weather gods smiled at us, and so did the rugby gods, because it was a game for the ages, wasn't it, Abdullah? 8 tries that we saw scored, and what a superb game to cap off the entire season with.
Absolutely brilliant, Shanika. I mean, just the game you would want in a knockout final. Isipatana going into the lead numerous times, St. Peter's counter-punching, but the interesting fact was that St. Peter's, if I'm not mistaken, never managed to go into the lead. So it was a great game, and full credit to both schools. They played with a lot of flair. We saw some wonderful individual brilliance by both teams, especially their backs. And as you said, it was a game for the ages and a wonderful way to sign off the 2024 season.
Certainly was. We saw 8 tries. 3 of them were converted by Rahul Peter, 1 by Shahid Zumri for Isipatana. And then, of course, Zumri putting over 4 penalties. Started off with a miss at the post, Abdullah, but came back and some long-range penalties. They were not particularly difficult on the angle, but those long-range stuff, carrying that groin injury, that was some performance.
Absolutely, and you sense that he really wanted it, isn't it, to end his school career on a high, and boy, didn't he do just that. And even that try which he scored, he had to cover about 5 to 10 meters, but yet he had to go through a couple of defenders and just showed his determination to go over the line. So he's been an inspirational player for Isipatana. But I thought in this game, where Isipatana probably won the game was their ability to match the Peterite 8. And they basically nullified that threat, which we'd expected before game for the Peterite 8 to dominate. And that didn't happen. So I think once it became a 50-50 game at between both the eights, then I think Isipatana, that's where the three quarters came into play, and that's how it eventually turned out.
Yes, I thought the set piece was really good. St. Peter's really didn't have an answer to Tunethra Durangoda at number 2, and that was something that really went in their favour. So Isipatana got a lot of quality ball, which they were able to do something with. And if you check some of those tries, Abdullah, it was just pressure from the forwards that made St. Peter's kick back, and that try from Abdulaziz. My goodness, what a superb bit of stepping that was. And also, conversely, Shahid Zumri with that little chip kick over, and to find his other winger, Nimanta Sandeepa, two amazing bits of brilliance.
Absolutely. And the amazing part of that was first to identify the space, and second of all, to execute the kick under pressure and with pinpoint accuracy. So absolutely brilliant skill by the young man. I think throughout the season we've spoken with so much favour for him, and once again he just raised to that occasion, didn't he?
And Dulaj Nawodiya's team also has been superb this season, Abdullah, winning the league and coming so close in the knockout final as well. He has led from the front. He's been an absolute terrier in the loose, carrying the ball, making the tackles, and being just a nuisance at the breakdown as well. He has been a superb for St. Peter's. And also guys like Yumit Chiharu are playing their final season. They really missed him in that final, didn't they? Because if you look at where Abdulaziz stepped through, if you look at the chip kick that Shahid Zumri put in, they were all in that 13-14 channel that Yumit Chihara might have been covering if he was there. Pasindu Silva thrust into the spotlight there and asked to defend at 13, which is not something that you can do in a couple of weeks preparation. So it just showed how much importance there is. You don't know what you got till it's gone, isn't it?
Yeah, especially in such a big game, isn't it? That number 13 position is just so pivotal, especially in defense. To expect your player who has been playing fullback and who enjoys so much room to come into that 13th position was probably asking for too much, but I guess they didn't have any option as well. And eventually, you have to give credit to Isipatana. They probably just wanted it that little bit more, and that's the way it showed in the scoreline as well.
Yeah, they went into a 34-22 lead, and we all thought the game was done and dusted, but Pasindu Silva scoring another try with individual brilliance, coming back, making it a 5-point game, and then there were a couple of opportunities, a few scrums, a couple of lineouts as well, that St. Peter's just let the pressure get to them.
Yeah, that's right, and to Isipatana's credit, they held their nerve defensively as well, isn't it? And again, in this crucial match, Shanaka, that penalty count does seem to be a big factor, isn't it? And here, Peters probably conceded, I think it was 14-8, if I'm not mistaken. Just too many penalties were conceded. So eventually, Zumri's 4 penalties, you could say, probably proved to be the difference at the end of the day.
Yes, it certainly did. So, coaches, in your close season, what are you going to be looking at? Discipline, discipline, discipline. That's going to be the key factor that you guys are going to be focusing on when you're in your off season, making sure that your teams come back, concede less penalties, and of course, give the referees less to do, which is always something that the referees are happy about and the crowds are happy about as well. So, at the end of that knockout tournament, we have come to the end of the 2024 season. So, we thought we'd just have a look at the players who we thought have impressed in each and every position. Now, this is not, unfortunately, we don't really have enough data to do this on a scientific basis and say this is why these players have been picked. But we've watched a lot of games, the two of us, and we feel that these are the players that really stood out in their positions. Of course, some of them unlucky to miss out. Some of you guys who have played really well, unlucky to miss out. But let's have a look at what we chose as our team of this season. So in the front row, of course, I don't think there's much argument that Tinethra Gamage of Royal College Abdullah was one of the outstanding players. And he really was a massive part of that Royal machine.
Yeah, absolutely. He carried well. His lifting was very good at the lineouts. And overall general play was very good. He was very good around the fringes as well. So he definitely played a big part in Royal's performances this year. And just good by that Thomian game, when he left the field with the yellow card, Royal immediately conceded a try through the driving ball. So a very important cog in that Royal 8.
Absolutely. And looking at some of the other players in that loose head position who we thought were good, we think Situm Rajapaksa for Isipatana was also very good. And we thought the prop Lenegal also for St. Thomas's was quite good, as was Cyril Alexander for Trinity College. So great work from those players. Unfortunately, we can only pick one. Moving across, this might be the controversial selection, Abdullah. I know you don't exactly agree with picking a player out of position, but I think Dulaj Navodya, given his height and given the fact that he does throw into the line out, he's probably going to be a better hooker in the club scene, or maybe even playing for Sri Lanka, then he's going to be a number 8, which is why I kind of prevailed over you in picking him at hooker.
Yeah, wonderful player, wonderful skill set as well. And yes, he can definitely look at slotting into that hooker position because he's got all the skills. And in modern rugby, this hooker is always considered as the fourth player in the third row, isn't it, in a team? So, yes, it'll be interesting to see. I hope he continues to play. Wonderful leader as well. And I can understand your thinking to some other get him into the 15 and hope he goes on to do better and things in the club scene.
Yes, and Dehan Senaratha from St. Thomas's, and I think Nakib Mohammed from Royal also doing really well over the course of the season, but Dulaj just pipping us even though it is out of position. And on the tight end side, we've picked Kavin Tarusha. It was a close battle. Rani the Ridmal was very good for St. Peter's as well, and we thought Sithil Pereira from St. Thomas's and Satish Kumar from Trinity also did really well. But Kavin Tarusha, being one of those workhorses, he scored the try that took the game, the semi-final game, into extra time, and he has been really good in his defense as well, Abdullah. That's why he makes the tight end.
Yeah, that's right. And his work rate around the park is pretty good as well. Kind of suits that Isipatana mold of rugby that you'd want your prop to be mobile as well. So, yes, an interesting selection and probably lends a bit of balance to that front row.
So we've gone also for 4 and 5 in that engine room. We've gone for a little bit of size. Sanruk Gamage of Wesley College, an underrated player. He's a big lad and he manages to get around the park as well, carries quite well, a little bit more conditioning, and I think he will be in the same mold as someone like Ihan Veerasurya, who was out and out one of the best players in that second row position. Had a lot of competition from his second row partner, of course, Bhuvaneka Seranayaka, who really came on towards the end of the season, but Ihan pips his buddy to the post. So Sanruk Gamage and Ihan Veerasurya in the engine room. Abdullah, anybody that we're missing here?
No, that's about it. I think there was a lot of competition in that area, but eventually I think probably, again, it's the balance of the team we are looking at, isn't it? Sanruk Gamage is a very good ball carrier. Veerasurya is good in the air as well, so they probably complement each other well.
Yes, and I think a lot of teams, especially with Kenula Mihisara for Isipatana and even Revon Pereira for St. Peter's, a lot of the coaches are looking for not just a line-out jumping second rower. They're looking for someone who can really do damage with the carry and also to help with the lift up there, to give some height into that line-out. So that's something that we had to pay a little bit of attention to as well. So given the fact that Gamage is not a line-out jumper, we've gone in for the third row selections, and the third row selections have probably been the hardest that we've had. Shyam Mendes of Wesley College makes it to the front just ahead of Tunetho Dodangoda because his defense is probably a little bit better, gives away a few less penalties, and is outstanding at the front of the line-out. And then we've gone for Tisanga Disanayaka on the blind side. And of course, Ayaz Shyam at number 8. Ayaz Shyam had a superb Bradby as well over both legs. He played outstandingly well. And he's been asked to play at 6, he's been asked to play at 8. And we've picked Disanga Disanayaka also because he can play in both of those positions also. But the balance of the third row is what we went for there, Abdullah.
Yeah, that's right. And also a lot of versatility in that as well. A couple of line-out options as well. So a lot of options if you're a coach to work with. And yeah, I think it's a well balanced. Once again, it's the balance, isn't it? The balance of the third row.
Yes, so a few guys, of course, who are unlucky to miss out. And Tinetha Dodangoda was one of those guys. We thought he was really good. And of course, Isipatana captain Nesada Jayavira, who was superb at number 8 as well for his team. But we thought that Ayaz Shyam just had a little bit more versatility and was carrying the ball well and was also good at the back of those mauls. So Nesada Jayavira, probably the unluckiest player in the entire 15 not to make it to our end of the season of 2024. But a few other players in the third row also. Rashain Dwight started off really well for St. Thomas's. Unfortunately, couldn't continue his season, but we had quite a few players. Aiden Fernando, another one who got injured in the knockout final, but managed to play right through to the end. He was outstanding for St. Peter's as well. But again, we can only pick those 3 guys. And in the halves combination, I think this was probably one of the easier choices, wasn't it, Abdullah? Because we had didn't have a lot of talent at number 9. I think maybe it's because players are playing in this particular way now, or coaches are coaching in this particular way where the 9s are just supposed to get the ball out to the 10. And we're not seeing the 9s that have that little bit of individual brilliance sniping around the base. We're not seeing a lot of that. So maybe that's why I think Khalid Shenar really stood out with a little bit of creativity. And partner Rahim, of course, it was an easy choice for Shahid Zubri.
Yes, probably the player of the season as well at 10, isn't it? So not much debate in that area. And as you very correctly said, we're probably a bit starved of choices at the number 9 position, isn't it? So yeah, those would be a half combination for sure.
Venika Vikramasuri, I thought, did well at number 9 for St. Thomas's, but really not enough. Vijay Koon also, think he has a lot more left in his game. He's got some great box kicks, but unfortunately didn't really come to the fore. And with all the defense now going to be concentrating on Shan Altaf, he's going to get a lot of room to run, so hopefully he'll be able to use that in upcoming seasons. Zumri, of course, outstanding vision, outstanding leadership of that back line, and the ability to bring other players into the game, which is something he's developed recently. So he's number 10, closely followed, of course, by some good performances by Idris Farooq from Royal, from Rahul Peter of St. Peter's. Rahul Peter of St. Peter's. Shan Altaf of Trinity also, who did really well, we thought. So again, we can pick only 110. And we thought that the fly half for Vidyartha also was really good at the start of the season. Just couldn't manage to take that game to the next level. So that's where things ended up at the number 10 position. Then, of course, the number 11 position, the winger, I don't think there's really any debate. Vishenka Silva was out and out the best in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Highest try scorer and a wonderful finisher as well. So that was a pretty easy choice, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And then another difficult choice at number 12. We had some really good performances. Anuhas Kodituaku, the Trinity captain, started off the season really well. Emit Javira, after being injured early on, came in and was a really big cog in that St. Peter's midfield towards the end of the season. And Dhananda Vikramarachi also for Isipatana, I thought, was really outstanding, as was Nabil Yahya for Royal Abdullah, because he really did a lot of decoy running, took a lot of hits, scored some points as well. But for me, I think Seneshka Leonagunawardena just shaded everyone in terms of consistency. He's not spectacular, but he does what he does well, makes good tackles, and also is very dangerous close to the line. So probably the hardest choice that we've had in terms of options for number 12. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's right. And I think the most important factor for him was he managed to constantly get over the gain line, isn't it? He's a very strong, well-built lad. And as you correctly said, his defense was very good as well. So, yeah, tough choice, but probably, in our opinion, the best number 12.
Yes, Dhananda Vikramarachi, very unlucky to miss out there as well. Yumit Chihara at number 13, unfortunately, he couldn't play a part in the knockout tournament, which I think was a huge factor for St. Peter's. The fact that they couldn't get over the line in that knockout was largely due to the fact that this huge part of their team was missing. He does such a lot of work on the defensive end that goes unseen, but also on the attacking end. He manages to get his team down the park quite a bit because he's got this thunderous boot. And I think Yumit Chihara was out and out the best 13 that we had in the season. We had Gayan Pereira from Vidyartha also, who scored quite a few tries, and I thought he was very good for Vidyartha, the captain. But Yumit Chihara, despite being injured in the last couple of matches of the season, is the man who wins out at that position.
Yeah, a big part of that, Peter, right? Three-quarter line, and you sense that in the knockouts when the chips were down and when the pressure was on, they did definitely miss him because, again, he plays a crucial role in that number 13. He's very aware of his surroundings. He brings his back three into the game very well. And I thought that's an area where Peters were found wanting in the semi-final as well as in the final.
Yes, and now to the last two positions. On the right wing side, we have Fahad Nazar from Royal College. Thought he took his tries against Trinity and St. Thomas's really well. And if he had a little bit more ball, Abdullah, he could probably have been challenging Vishankar Silva for that top try scoring position. I thought he was very good with ball in hand and with his cover defense as well, getting back, covering the backfield, and that bit of distribution that we saw from him at the Thomian game as well. I thought he's a very good all-round player who has a big future.
Yeah, that's right. And also his willingness to come off his wing and work, isn't it? We saw him scoring that Bradby close to the try line. He picked up from a ruck and attacked on the fringes. So he's not afraid to get into the mix of things. And his work rate is very good. So that's why we've gone for him as a number 14 wing 3.
Yes, his teammate Samar Singh on the other wing was also very good. Mohammad Fawaz for Wesley, I thought, scored some excellent tries. He's a small player, but did manage to get himself over the line. And of course, Abdul Aziz and Nimanta Sandeepa, after that performance in the knockout trophy final, both of them deserve an honourable mention as well. So good stuff from the wingers who scored a lot of tries. And there were some really good performances at fullback. I thought Jahan Bulat Singalage, he had good days and bad days for St. Thomas's, so I don't think he was consistent enough to warrant a place in this side. But Yuan Pathiran also, I think the same befell him. He was really good on some days, not excellent on other days. And then we had Abdullah Faiza for Isipatana, who I thought was very good. And then we also had Abdul Hadi for Wesley, who I thought played quite well as well. But in terms of attack, in terms of just what he brings to the park, Pasindu Silva was the man we went for.
Yeah, and I think he was the standout, Shanika, because in crucial moments he'll pop up and he will get his team right through his sheer individual brilliance. He definitely hurt Royal in that crucial league encounter. When the game just seemed to be in the balance, his ability to counter-attack was just brilliant. And even in the final, although he was being slotted in at a number 13 position, whenever the ball was kicked back, he dropped back and he was willing to counter-attack. So, yes, I think it's the kind of fullback you want in your ranks who can pose that threat. And that's exactly what Pasindu brings to the party.
And when we look at the midfield that we've chosen of Liana Gunawardena and Shihara, you're not going to get many people getting through them, which is why you can afford to pick an attacking fullback, a guy who doesn't like to kick too much as well. But we thought that Pasindu Silva was the man that we should go for. Of course, a lot of people that we mentioned who performed as well. And of course, this is completely subjective. Abdullah and I have also not agreed on every one of the choices. And I'm sure you will not agree on some of the choices as well. But keep the debate respectful and let us know exactly what you think of our team of the season 2024 and who would you have included, why, and give us the reasons as well. Thanks so much for joining us for that particular segment.
Fiat Car Radials. The road is yours.
Getting stuck in traffic at rush hour, you can't decide. But where you have a late lunch, you decide. You Decide is the easiest, most exciting way of getting the best value for your next meal. Download the You Decide app now.
Well, that brings us to the end of a fantastic rugby season in the schools section for 2024. It also brings us to the end of a fantastic first season of Ruck N Roll. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to all the players who have been fabulous on the field. Thanks also to the referees. They've been good, they've been bad. Lots of things to work on in the off season. And of course, thanks to all the fans who tune in and make it worthwhile for these boys. Thanks to the coaches who joined us on the show. A lot of guests that we had, a lot of topics that we covered as well. And a big thank you also to my good mate Abdullah Yusuf for being our guest in the studio, helping me analyze all these games and giving you the best possible analysis on the first season of Ruck N Roll. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We'll see you next season.